So I have done the hug decks, the hashtag hug decks video. And I have to say, to be honest, it was a little, I phoned it in a little bit. You know what I mean? I feel like it was, I was phoning it in. I didn't really take the time to look through my cards to see my decks to see what my hug decks all were. Um, to be perfectly honest, I feel like a lot of them are hug decks because I do turn to um, like all the tarot and oracle cards that I got um, that are not my Rider-Waite Smith, for instance, like my Centennial Rider-Waite and my Morgan Greer that I use for reading. That all the other decks that I got that I began to collect really they are hug decks because I got them because there's some kind of aspect to them that I find comforting. But I wanted to just come on and maybe talk a little bit about how to what I can't tell you what to do, but what I can do is share with you how I cope during difficult times. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert at coping through difficult times. I could tell you I have a lot of experience coping through difficult times, but it's not like I'm an expert and I sail through difficult times. I'm like everyone else. Difficult times totally throw me off my center as well. Difficult times do make me feel groundless. Difficult times do make me feel vulnerable. Difficult times do make me feel, I do feel fearful. I do have all these feelings. But I have developed some things that I do to mitigate these feelings. Like I said, last year was one whole year of difficult situation, difficult times. And this year, this year, you're all living it. This one takes the cake. But anyway, so far, so good. So like I said, I utilize when I'm feeling fearful, vulnerable, unsure, uncertain. These are very uncertain times. And I'm human, last I checked. And it's human nature to want reassurance. See, this is really, when you're feeling empty, when you're grasping and, you need something and you're not sure what that is, I'm telling you what you're needing, what you're grasping for, it's reassurance. And it's not easy to obtain reassurance during unsure times. But for me, my magical spiritual practice is what keeps me, I wouldn't say sane and I wouldn't say grounded, but it does help me feel supported even if I don't feel supported. You know what I mean? Like, in hindsight, I could say, oh, yeah, that did support me. But in the moment, nothing less of everything suddenly being okay is going to make you feel supported and reassured. But nothing prevents you from trying. And what I want to express in this video is that you have to keep working at it and you have to keep trying. I understand that everyone is having a different experience right now. Some of you are feeling isolated because you're home alone and the whole social and physical distancing thing is making you feel unwell and it's making you feel lonely and frightened. But thankfully, we live in an information age where we could reach out to people virtually, and if you don't have anyone to reach out to me, okay? I will do my best to answer you. But, there's one blessing there, is that it is the information age, and we do have the technology to reach out to one another digitally, which, could you imagine if this occurred 20 years ago even? Or, yeah, even 20 years ago. It would have, just at the start there, it would have been different. But they probably would have caused an explosion of, technology sooner. Anyway, I digress. Then there's people that don't want to be home. You know what I mean? They resent having to stay home. They're having a difficult time coping with staying home. There are people that are having a difficult time coping with the fact that they're an essential service and they have to be out there working. I am wired to, I would be perfectly, because this is the way life is, right? I would be perfectly happy to stay home. I am a homebody. I'm an introvert. I would revel in the opportunity to hunker down and shelter in place. But life is not like that. And that is why I'm an essential worker and I have to be out there working. Do I have sore feelings about it? Well, yeah. Just like you have sore feelings about having to stay home. It's human nature. So, now that all that is out in the open, let's begin. During the most uncertain times of my life, the times when I have been the most fearful, I always, I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say. I have always reverted back to the spirituality of my childhood. Those of you watching me who follow a pagan path, who perhaps come from a Christian background, or a different religious background, or no background at all, no religious background at all. Even you, well, let's start with the Christian background. The reason if you left the Christian background, most likely it was because it didn't serve you. And you found a path that served you, that served you better spiritually. But it is human nature to want to go back. Because when we were children, we believed we were safe. We believed the adults. Now we're the adults. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, I can only speak for myself. I was born into a family. We were Roman Catholic. And I was raised in the Roman Catholic religion. We weren't exactly perfect Catholics. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't go to church every Sunday. We're Italian. Italians don't go to church every Sunday. Especially immigrant Italians. But I digress. What I'm trying to say is that I was surrounded by icons of saints. I was surrounded by Roman Catholic holidays. The whole year revolved around Roman Catholic holidays. Today is Palm Sunday. And I stopped for a moment today and pondered Palm Sunday. My father died in 2000 on Palm Sunday. So I spent a little time this morning talking about my father. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And it made me feel comforted. It made me feel like I connected to him. Because I gotta tell you one thing, for me, it's part of my personality that for me, people don't suddenly become saints because they died, huh? Again, because my spiritual practice revolves around communication with saints and communication with spirits and my relatives who have passed on, I can tell you right now that when a human being dies, their personality persists. Now, well, that's a conversation for another time. Also, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So during uncertain times, it is natural to revert back to um, your earliest experiences of spirituality or religion, and that's okay. The reason why I'm coming on here today to talk about it is because I want to tell you that you're not betraying your current path if in fear you're praying to Jesus. You see what I'm saying? Because Jesus doesn't care what religion you follow. He really doesn't. Neither does God. They don't care. Religion is man-made. But if you feel connected to where you came from, if you feel connected to God, if you feel connected to your Creator, if you feel connected to the source that sustains you, to your soul, then that's all that matters. And you could still, you're not betraying. If you've been pagan for 25 years, you're not betraying your pagan path. You don't have to answer to anybody. What you need to do is take care of you first and foremost. Be kind to yourself. Don't feel conflicted. I'll tell you why. When my father was diagnosed with brain cancer, I was almost 30 years old. I was turning 30 that summer, and I had long left Catholicism. And I guess the best description of what my spiritual practice was is that I was kind of pagan. I had even left my saints behind for a little bit, but I was having a crisis of faith. I was searching. And my dad gets diagnosed with brain cancer, terminal brain cancer. And I found myself facing, and I'm an only child. My parents are divorced, and it was a whole schmoz. But anyway, I found myself in a time and place where I had nothing to sustain me, because I was up to my chin in a crisis of faith. I was without, I would say my best way to describe it, I was without spirituality. I was without a connection to my source. I was without a connection to spirit. I was going through a really rough time. I was in the void. And I have to tell you that it was my arrogance that kept me from reconnecting with spirit. All I needed to do was find that place inside of me where I felt safe, and maybe go to mass, maybe seek out a priest to talk to, because that was my early childhood education or early childhood experience. Maybe it was just to return to my saints and to the Blessed Virgin, praying to Jesus. Seriously, people. But in my arrogance, I could not look back, and I did not have anything set up yet to catch me. I did not have a safety net, a spiritual safety net. And I don't wish that on anybody. And some of you watching this may be in that situation right now. And what I'm telling you right now is, don't be arrogant. Don't be like me. You know where you need to go spiritually to feel safe, go there so you can feel safe. Go there so that you can have a rest. Because this constant state of anxiety and this constant state of not knowing is exhausting. Give yourself a rest. And on that note, I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about, cards and things that I use when I need to feel safe, or when I need to get back to basics, or when I just need comfort. I'll be right back. So, for the sake of full disclosure, I don't edit. You already know this if you've been watching me. I also am not home alone. My dog keeps groaning because, like I said, I don't know if I said it in this video, because I have been trying to record this video all afternoon. There's a few versions of these. I don't even know which one I'm going to upload. My dog typically becomes annoyed when I'm talking for length of time and it's not specifically to her, where she will groan, get up, and leave the room. Instead, today, she has chosen to just groan, but not leave the room. So you'll be hearing that. And again, there's also other members of my household here, and whatever. They can't go anywhere. So they're home, right? So this part of the video is where I'm going to share with you some of the things that I turn to for comfort in my magico-spiritual practice. And some of them are quite weird, and some of them are whatever. Let's just begin. When I was 10 years old, I had neighbors who came from Russia, and it was a woman, her son, and her mother. And the mother, the grandma, came to rang the doorbell, because she was my uncle's tenant, my aunt and uncle's tenant. Rang the doorbell on Palm Sunday, which is, hang on, my phone's ringing. So let's try this again. Okay. If you've been watching me for a hot minute, you know that, again, there's no editing, there's no whatever. I just hit play, hit record, and we go. So, where was I? I was going to share with you some things that connect me to a place of comfort. And I was telling you about my neighbors. So I was raised by my aunt and uncle, and they had tenants who were from Russia, and it was a woman, her son, and her mother. And the grandmother rang the doorbell on Palm Sunday, and when I was 10 years old, and brought a gift for me. And it's like, oh my gosh. So here's the interesting thing. I don't remember everything that was in the gift. I could, guess that there may have been chocolate. I could get, or candy. I could guess that there may have been soap, maybe like a bar of soap, because bars of soap is another thing that ties me to a place of comfort. I freaking love bars of soap. They kind of, I don't know, I can't explain it. If I got a gift as a bar of soap as a kid, it was like, oh my God, I treasured it. But anyway, now you know this about me. But there were two items in that gift that I still remember, that still bring me to a place of comfort, that I own today. Not the exact same ones, because I don't know what happened to those and whatever. One of them was strawberry incense. I was 10 years old. I had never seen incense in my life. and she bought, and in this package, in this gift, was strawberry incense. I remember it was in a basket, and the brand was Spiritual Sky, and it had beautiful packaging with blue, and I think, and yeah, anyway. And I've never seen that brand here where I live, anywhere. I don't even know if it still exists. But anyway, with Spiritual Sky strawberry incense. And I think, for whatever reason, my brain connects that strawberry incense to La Madonna, to the Blessed Virgin. So I got this at a store in a town south of where I live, a couple of towns south of where I live. This brand is called Juicy J's Thai incense. And it smells just like, no, strawberry incense. So it reminds me, it's not exactly like that one. Like, I have that scent of the Spiritual Sky brand tattooed on my brain. Oh, Spiritual Sky musk oil was also in that basket, which I haven't been able to source probably decades, right? But probably doesn't even exist anymore. But anyway, I digress. So this, when I started my video, or this is like video number 4. I have to scrap the other 3. It's a long story. I was burning a stick of this, and it's so comforting, and it brings me to that place of comfort. Excuse me. This was another product that was in, I think it was, I imagine it was a smaller bottle than this one. This is 150 milliliters. And I think it was a smaller bottle than this. That was also in that basket. And this is Cologne 4711. This 4711 has been in production at least a couple of 100 years. It's made in Germany, and it's used. I then learned that like when I got to know what my Latin neighbors were doing in terms of their magical spiritual practice, and how they used Florida water, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but they used Florida water, something that I still see today that's very prevalent, that people use in Latin magical spiritual practice. This is what Europeans, Slavs, used. And I remember when I told my mom about, on the phone, what I got and whatever, my mom said that this was perfect for, she says, when you're feeling sad, it's uplifting or whatever. She says, put it on a hanky, make an offering to La Madonna with this. So these are 2 things that I keep in my possession that will bring me back to receiving that gift, which again, I didn't receive many gifts as a child, and I think that's why still to this day when I receive a gift, it's like, anyway, it brings me to that place. All right. The next thing that brings me back to a place of joy, and this is interesting because some of you are going to say, Mama mia, I've seen these before, but it doesn't matter because I'm consistent, is my saint kit. This is a part of my saint kit. These are my little my little saint prayer cards. This being my favorite artistic depiction of the Blessed Virgin. It's she's known as La Madonna dei Poveri, the Madonna of the poor, Madonna of the streets. This one is, I'm trying to remember if I think the artist is here. Is the artist here? No, it's not. This was the prayer card for when my uncle who raised me died. And it has his name on the back with a prayer. But these little things in my saint kit that I featured in a previous video, my prayer cards, in this leather calendar cover. that I've kept them in 40 years, brings me comfort. And so it's one of the things I reach for, and I look through it. And if I'm looking to pray a novena, these are the saints in this thing are the saints, the prayer cards of the saints that I work with the most. So there's Saint Anthony in here, and Padre Pio, and Saint Michael, and here you go, Saint Michael Archangel. So yeah, so these are some items that I reach for when I'm looking for comfort. These are some modern prayer cards that were sent to me by friends. Often when I do spiritual work for people, I don't charge money for spiritual work. Like, I charge money for readings, but I don't charge money for spiritual work because there is something more important that I want in exchange. And for the most part, if I'm doing spiritual work for people who live in Montreal, for instance, my request is that they go to St. Joseph's Oratory and light a candle on my behalf in the chapel, and I will tell them which portion of the chapel, and people will do that for me, which is wonderful. And then I may ask them to get, this is St. Expedite, I may ask them to get me a prayer card from the gift store. And these are some of the ones that I've received over the years from people and friends that I've done spiritual work for. So I reach for these, and it's part of my Saints kit that bring me comfort. In terms of tarot and oracle decks, so when I need comfort, and sometimes I just want to connect with my guardian angel during really, really trying times, during like terrible, terrible times. When my father was diagnosed with brain cancer, my guardian angel reached out to me. Just like when I had a near-death experience when I was a child, my guardian angel showed up and brought me back to my bedroom, or brought me back to my crib. Anyway, that's a story for another video. But my guardian angel has shown themselves to me. I say themselves because I perceive them as female, but I'm not sure they're gendered. Like, I'm not sure they have a gender the way we do here. So I've always, I know what their outline looks like in my mind, and it does feel like a maternal presence, but I never feel comfortable saying he or she. It's bizarre. I've never felt comfortable. Anyway, when I feel like I need to reach out to them, and I want the message from them, I like to use cards. I'm a cards person. That's what my whole channel is based on, is that I love talking about cards, right? And I love watching other people talk about cards. And of course, like a lot of you, this is a favorite. Mine has Doreen Virtue's name on it, and I'm not gonna ditch it because it has her name on it, because frankly, these are all Radley Valentine. I've said this before, yada yada yada. But even if they were Doreen Virtue, I don't care. All right, and I'll reach for these, and I'll hold them, and then I'll shuffle them or whatever, and then I'll ask, I'll meditate on, or I'll think upon, or I'll pray upon what it is that I'm feeling, or concerned about, or want a message about, and then I'll pick a card. And I'll pick a card, and I'll ask my guardian angel to give me a message of comfort. And a deck like this, you're certain you're going to get a message of comfort. Now, in the past, before I even had this deck, when I just worked with tarot cards, if you're vulnerable, if you're sensitive, tarot cards are probably not the best cards to use for a message of comfort, because the tarot is balanced, right? And it's human nature to, if you draw a card that is darker, like the devil, the tower, Five of Pentacles, to interpret that, instead of that being a message of comfort, as a message of warning, a message of danger. And that's not what you're needing right now. So put those down. Get your hug deck, and specific, these kind, like these Hay House tarot decks, whichever one you have, they're perfect for that, because even the more challenging life issues cards deliver the message softly. All right. So what I would do is I hold these, and I meditate on what it is I'm worried about, and I pray to my guardian angel to give me a message and all that stuff. And then I pick a card, and I keep the card out, because, see, this one is Messenger of Abundance. So this one says, wonderful news regarding your career. Now, I wasn't thinking about anything. I was talking, right? But let's a new job, a promotion, or acceptance into an excellent school comes into your life. You might feel ready to do something that's challenging and fulfilling. This situation may involve someone who's fun to be around and sometimes mischievous. This person, who may be you, is youthful, optimistic, and very clever. Now, I didn't have a specific question in mind, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know what this is about. But I'm going to leave it out, because maybe it is a message that I need to hear. Maybe it will mean something in a few days. So there's that. Make sure when you choose your deck, though, for messages of comfort, that you're choosing a deck that's going to give, that doesn't matter what you draw, will be comforting, is what I'm trying to say. So, since we're talking about decks, I'm going to share with you some other ones. And they just have, two other ones happen to also be Doreen Virtue decks. And one of them is this one. And this is because, well, my relationship with the Blessed Virgin is strong, and it's lifelong. And I did have at one point Mother Mary Oracle by Alana Fairchild. But I don't know. For me, it was the guidebook. I found the guidebook didn't resonate, and I found it just didn't resonate. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck, and I passed it on to someone that I hope it resonates with them, or they pass it on to someone that it resonates with. This one resonates with me because of the art style, I think. But what's interesting is that I have a stalker card with this deck. First of all, the backs. Queen of Angels. Oh my God. This is my stalker card. Doesn't matter how many times I mix this deck. This is the card that always manages to come out for me, which I find the most, which is why I keep this deck. I keep this deck because it blows my mind. And it's this one. It says blessings. Today I count my blessings, small and large, and I notice the new gifts that come to me from God. Now, if you are averse to the word God, I'll replace it with something else. For me, God has nothing to do with religion. So, and for me, La Madonna has nothing to do with religion. And I know, I have a close friend that's probably reeling right now hearing this. But for me, it's not religion. It's my connection that matters. Anyway. Sorry, man. I didn't leave the church. The church left me. Anyway, that was a secret message to a friend. The next deck that I find comforting. It was also part of my hug decks, hashtag hug decks video, where no matter what, it's the kind of deck that you're going to get a comforting message from. And this one too, surprisingly, it does. There's a card that talks about loss in here. You know what I mean? Like it's the Magical Unicorns Oracle cards by Doreen Virtue. First of all, let's look at these backs. If you're vulnerable, if you're sensitive, if you're tender right now, stick to this kind of tool. You know what I mean? To these kind of cards. And look how comforting this message is, right? You'll know in the morning. When you wake up, you'll have a better idea about what to do. Relax until then. See, this is the kind of message that you basically telling you you don't need to know what to do right now. Rest. Rest. When the time is right, you will know what to do. So there's that. Still, to go back a little bit to saints and saint magic and all that stuff. I have Voices of Saints. This is a Los Carabeo deck, and it's 78 cards, but it's not a tarot. It's an oracle, and if you want to call it that, 78 saint cards in it. I edged mine to match the backs ish, and to match the just like that. And suppose you're wanting to, it does have oracle meaning, kind of, in the booklet. But also you might be reaching out to say, well, which saint should I build a relationship with right now that may help me through these troubled times? I'm going to pick one at random. So I picked San Januarius, or San Januarius. I don't know how to pronounce Latin. My Latin is shit. Sorry. But this is San Gennaro. San Gennaro is the patron saint of Naples, and I was raised by my uncle from Naples. So I see this, and I suddenly feel like, oh my God, out of 78 cards, I pick San Gennaro. That tells me that I feel like my Zio Pellegrino just reached out to me, and that gives me comfort. He's passed away. He passed away 20 years ago. Actually, quite a few of my people passed away in 2020. All right. I still have a couple more I want to share with you. So then there's a couple of tarot decks that I reach for when I'm needing to, if I'm needing, there's the Guardian Angel Tarot, but this one's more like an oracle or a message from your guardian angel kind of thing, right? It's not, I don't treat this as a tarot deck. And I've already shared this with you in my hashtag hug decks and my favorite tarot decks and all this stuff. And it's my druid craft. And it is because from the day one that I pulled this out of the box, it's a very earthy deck. And my first card pull from this was a message from my mom. So when I'm needing to tap into that maternal guidance, when I'm needing my mom, I'll pull out this tarot deck, and it never fails. It's it blows my mind. It really does. And this is why we build, and this is what I have to thank TarotTube for. Because prior to TarotTube, I only had 2 tarot decks. One was my really worn Morgan Greer that I had been using for decades. And the other was a Centennial commemorative centennial Rider-Waite that I got because my Morgan Greer looked ragged. And I also had on a shelf, not living its best life, just being neglected, the for the most part, the Mythic Tarot that I've since moved on. And this is where I have to thank TarotTube, because without TarotTube I wouldn't have found these, I wouldn't have known that different decks can connect you to different spirits, and you can actually tell that they have a different voice. I used cards before to connect to spirit, but to pick up a deck of cards that's brand new out of the box and to hear your mother's voice in spirit, it's incredible. So this I need to thank TarotTube for, because prior to watching TarotTube, I didn't even know it was a thing to own more than a couple of tarot decks. So yeah. And another deck, and this is when I was ill. I was very ill over Christmas and New Year, which makes me question if perhaps the virus that's circulating right now wasn't already circulating, because the line of work, my line of work, my husband's line of work, exposes us to a lot of people. His because of travel, mine because of the nature of my job. But I digress. When I was very ill, this is the deck I turned to, because this, I've mentioned before, it's the Tarot the Secret Tarot the Magical Forest. Tarot the Secret Forest is the fairy one, the fae one. This is Tarot the Magical Forest, I think. And this one is the landscape of my inner child. This artwork is what my inner child looks like. This is what it looks when I'm. This to me is a familiar world, and it is a tarot, and it will give me the hard messages, but it gives me the hard messages also in a manner that I can take, even in a state of fear and vulnerability. And this was the deck I reached for the most when I was really ill in December, like over Christmas and New Year. It gave me straightforward advice. It told me what I needed to know. Didn't sugarcoat it, but it also was extremely direct, that I didn't have to interpret it. Like, it didn't require a lot of work to interpret. And that's the point I'm trying to make. When you're in a state of fear, of uncertainty, of vulnerability, reach for the tools. Reach for the decks that do not require work to interpret. Reach for the decks and the tools that are that maybe when you're not feeling fearful and vulnerable seem a little juvenile. Case in point, Magical Unicorns Oracle cards. I just want to share a couple more of these cards. I freaking love this deck. I love it so much. I don't know if I showed you, but I did finally make a bag for it out of yarn scraps. And last but not least, like, we discussed fragrances, right, earlier, like the fragrance of the strawberry incense that to me right away brings me to that place of comfort, joy, receiving this gift. It ties into my very early magico-spiritual practice. I created my first altar after going to St. Joseph's Oratory when I was 7 or 8 years old. It was the year that I had my first Holy Communion. And I bought like little saint icons and glow-in-the-dark rosary beads that I still love, like glow-in-the-dark um, religious like Catholic souvenirs really float my boat. Rosary beads and saint statues, glow in the dark is totally my thing. Anyway, I digress. And I had this nightstand that had a drawer, and then it had like a, best way I could describe it was it was an enclosed area, like a cave, and I built my altar there, and it had things that mattered to me. My favorite rocks. It had my sacramentals from St. Joseph's Oratory, my glow in the dark rosary beads, and my St. Joseph, and my prayer cards, and my favorite bar of soap, and this, and my incense that I wasn't allowed to burn, but I had a stick out, and it made that little cave of my nightstand smell pretty. My my framed picture of Saint Anne with Mother Mary. Saint Anne, for you who don't know, is Mother Mary's mother, that my uncle made for me out of an old calendar and some scrap wood, which sits on my altar right there. And actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, it is the centerpiece of the banner for my YouTube channel. So, what was I saying? All right. So there's other things too that bring me to that place of comfort. One of them is the scent of roses. I identify the scent of roses with divine feminine, goddess energy. My mother, whose name was Rose, and just comfort and protection. And this is oil that I have from my favorite brick and mortar metaphysical shop, Mélange Magique, that no longer exists. Moonwise Creations is this brand. And it's totally fake. It's fragrance oil. I don't work with essential oils for magic or spirituality and all that, because essential oils are, one, expensive, two, they're volatile, three, you have to be careful because they can negatively affect, they can disrupt hormones, they can poison your pets. You know what I mean? So when it comes to magical spiritual work, I stick to fragrance oils. They're safe, and yeah, and they smell like you expect them to smell. Where was I? So the scent of roses, for me, is something that really brings me comfort. And last but not least, because of course I'm going to mention it, because I have a whole freaking collection of perfume that connects me to people I love who are no longer living. And one of the fragrances that, when I'm needing comfort, when I need to return to a place that makes me feel safe and loved, is I just brought this one because I have quite a few different versions of it. This is Jeannette cologne stick, and this is not the exact one, but my mom would buy me one, and when I'd visit her. My mom, when I was growing up, my mom basically, when I was 5, my mom ended up being institutionalized for schizophrenia. And I would every summer I would visit her, and we would go shopping together, and she'd buy me something. And this is one of it was summertime, so she would buy me something Jeannette. Often it was the stick, because I tend to like things that are that come in like this, like soap and solid form fragrances, and I don't know. I can't describe it. This just brings me back. Like, this fragrance just brings me to a place where I can remember what it feels like to be held by my mom and loved by my mom. So on that note, I'm going to leave you. Now, I don't know if I said it in this video, but it doesn't matter if I repeat myself. What I want you to know is that we are all struggling. I wish I could stay home, but I can't. My occupation requires that I be out there working. And you may be watching and you have to stay home because it's the right thing to do. Okay, stay safe, stay home. That doesn't mean you're enjoying it. You may be struggling because it's just the way life is. I would love to stay home. My whole life I've prepared to stay home. I'm an introvert and I'm a homebody, and in my heart I'm a housewife, and I love to cook and do all the domestic stuff is totally my thing. You're probably the complete opposite, and you're having to stay home. So know that I feel for you. I understand. Most of us are most likely having to do things that we don't want to be doing. But we'll get through it. Because, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it in this video yet, so I'll mention it here. Because the one constant is change. And no matter how good things are, they're not going to last forever. And no matter how bad things are, know that it's not going to last forever. Our life is, we're on a wheel. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. And the one thing we can count on is that no matter what our situation, it is not permanent. So with that, I'd like to bid you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, no matter what time it is where you are. And thank you for watching. And I apologize that this video was all over the place with pauses and probably strange sounds from groaning dog and elderly relatives. But I wanted to welcome you into my home and spend some time with you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'm wishing you all a beautiful day. Stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, don't touch your face. Bye-bye.